The transport ship New Sol moved slowly through the dark space toward a distant planet, called Kepler 44b. Inside the big ship, 50,000 people from Earth were traveling to start a new life. They had been flying through space for 2 years, and now they were almost at their new home. Captain Lee Hayan stood in the control room, looking out at the stars. He was a tall man with kind eyes who cared deeply about all the people on his ship. These people had left Earth forever to build humanity's first colony on another world. "Captain, we can dock at Harmony Point now," said Parkmina, the woman who helped guide the ship. She pointed to her screen where a big space station appeared. The station looked like a metal flower floating in the darkness between star systems. "Us in slowly," Hayan told her. "I want our people to see other worlds before we reach our new home." The space station was huge and strange. It had tall towers and spinning wheels, all connected by tubes and bridges. Ships from many different worlds were docked there. Some ships looked like Earth ships, but others were completely different. Some were round like balls, others were long and thin like snakes. Families pressed their faces against the windows of the New Sol. Children pointed excitedly at the weird buildings and strange ships. Most of these people had never seen anything built by aliens before. They whispered to each other about the amazing sights. "Look at that one," shouted a little girl named Choi Hannah. She was 8 years old and had bright, curious eyes. She pointed at a ship that looked like a giant crystal. "It's so pretty." Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Choi, smiled at their daughter's excitement. They had sold everything they owned on Earth to give their family a chance at a new life. Like many others on the ship, they believed the colony would be safe and peaceful. The docking went well. Captain Hayan felt proud as his ship connected perfectly with the station. His crew had worked hard to make the journey smooth for all the families. Soon, people would be able to walk around the station and see how other species lived. "Permission to let people visit the station?" asked Kim Jun, the man who handled all communications with other ships and stations. "Yes," Captain Hayan nodded, "but keep security teams nearby. We don't know much about alien customs yet." That was when everything went wrong. 6 dark ships appeared from behind the space station, like shadows coming to life. The ships were sleek and dangerous looking, with scars and marks covering their black holes. They had sharp edges and weapon ports that glowed with red light. "Captain!" Parkmina shouted. "Unknown ships are approaching fast." Before anyone could react, the strange ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy hit the New Sol, and the whole ship shook violently. People screamed as the lights went out, and emergency alarms began blaring. "Mayday! Mayday!" Kim Jun spoke frantically into his radio. "This is the Earth ship New Sol. We are under attack. Someone help us." The attacking ships were from a species called the Vorthok. They were known throughout the galaxy as raiders who captured weaker species and made them slaves. The Vorthok thought humans looked weak and easy to catch. Within minutes, the alien ships had damaged the New Sol's engines so badly that it couldn't fly away. Then small ships launched from the Vorthok vessels and stuck to the human ship like metal insects. Aliens began cutting holes in the hull to get inside. Captain Hayan tried to fight back. But his ship was built for carrying families, not for war. The few weapons they had were no match for the Vorthok raiders. The aliens poured through the holes they had cut. They were tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. Their faces had no nose, just slits for breathing. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that made a buzzing sound. The Vorthok moved quickly and efficiently. They had done this many times before. They knew exactly how to separate families and choose which humans would be most valuable as slaves. They grabbed the strongest men and women first, then took anyone who looked smart or useful. "No, let go of me," screamed Mrs. Choi as the aliens grabbed her husband. She held tight to little Hannah, but one of the Vorthok reached down with 2 of his forearms and pulled the child away. "Mommy," Anna cried, reaching for her mother as the alien carried her toward their ship. All around the New Sol, similar scenes were happening. The Vorthok took exactly 200 humans, including many children. They seemed to enjoy the fear and crying of their captives. To them, humans were just another weak species to be used. The leader of the raiders was named Vekmer. He was bigger than the other Vorthok, with more scars on his armor. He spoke into a device that would broadcast his words across the galaxy. "Let this remind all species that some races exist only to serve their betters," he announced. "These humans thought they could travel freely through our space. Now they will learn what happens to weak creatures who leave their tiny world." Captain Haon watched helplessly as the Vorthok ships flew away with 200 of his people. Last thing he heard was little Hannah crying for her parents as the alien ships disappeared into the darkness of space. The new Sol was left broken and drifting, its people traumatized and afraid. They had learned that the galaxy was not the peaceful place they had hoped it would be.
Ow.
The terrible news reached Earth 18 hours later. The message traveled through space faster than any ship could fly, carried by special communication devices that could send signals across the galaxy in minutes. President Kim Soo-jin sat in her office in Seoul, reading the report for the third time. Her hands shook slightly as she looked at the list of names. 200 people taken. 43 of them were children. The youngest was only 4 years old. She picked up her phone and called the leaders of every country on Earth. "Emergency meeting," she said to each one. 1 hour. This cannot wait. The United Earth Council building was located in Geneva, Switzerland. It was a round building with a large meeting room where representatives from every nation could sit together. Within 1 hour, every seat was filled. Presidents, prime ministers, and kings had dropped everything to attend this meeting. President Kim stood at the center of the room. She was a small woman, but her voice was strong and clear. "Our people have been taken by aliens called the Vorthok," she announced. "They are being sold as slaves somewhere in the galaxy." The room was completely silent. Everyone stared at the large screen that showed pictures of the missing people. There was little Choi Hannah, smiling in her school picture. There was Mr. Park Soon Woo, who had been a teacher on Earth. There was Mrs. Lee Myung, who had left behind 3 children to join the colony. "What did the Galactic Confederation say?" asked the Prime Minister of Canada. President Kim's face became hard as stone. They offered their deepest sympathies. "They suggest we file a complaint through proper diplomatic channels." They said this kind of thing happens sometimes, and we should be patient. Patient? The president of Brazil stood up, his voice angry. "They want us to be patient while our people are being sold like animals. The Confederation thinks we are weak, President." Kim continued, "They think we will accept this because we are new to space travel. They think we will cry and beg and do nothing." An old man in the back of the room cleared his throat. It was General Yoon Tae-ho, the highest-ranking military officer on Earth. He had gray hair and many medals on his uniform. He had spent his whole life preparing for war, even though he hoped it would never come. "What are our options?" he asked quietly. President Kim looked around the room at all the world leaders. "We can accept this and hope it never happens again. Or we can show the galaxy what happens when someone touches our people." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then the president of Russia raised his hand. "I vote for war." "War," agreed the Queen of England. "War," said the President of India. One by one, every leader in the room raised their hand. It was the first time in human history that every nation on Earth had agreed on something so quickly. "Then it's decided," President Kim announced. "We go to war." What happened next shocked even the humans themselves. Within hours, old enemies became allies. Countries that had been fighting for decades stopped their wars immediately. Soldiers who had been shooting at each other in the morning were working together by evening. All around the world, hidden doors opened. Secret military bases that most people didn't even know existed suddenly became active. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, mining stations that had been working for years suddenly stopped digging for rocks. Instead, they began removing fake outer shells to reveal massive warships underneath. The truth was that Earth's leaders had been secretly preparing for war since the day they first met aliens. They had smiled and talked about peace, but they had also been building weapons. They didn't trust the aliens. They had been right not to trust them. Admiral Han Ji-woo received a call while she was sleeping on a space station near Mars. She was the commander of Earth's most secret military project. For 10 years, she had been building and training a fleet that officially didn't exist. Admiral, you are needed immediately. The voice on the phone said. Han got dressed quickly and went to the command center. There, she saw something that made her smile grimly. On the screens were pictures of over 1,000 human warships. They had been disguised as cargo ships, research vessels, and mining platforms. But now, they were showing their true purpose. The largest ship was called the Vengeance. It was 3 times bigger than any ship the aliens had ever seen. It had weapons that could destroy entire cities and armor that could withstand attacks from multiple enemy fleets. It had taken 5 years to build in secret, using technology that humans had stolen and improved from alien visitors. Your orders, Admiral? She saw little Choi Hannah's face and felt her heart fill with cold anger. We're going to get our people back, she said, and we're going to make sure this never happens again. The human fleet began to move through space like a storm of metal and fire. Ships that had been hiding for years came out of the shadows. The species that had barely managed to build 1 colony ship suddenly had a military force that could challenge empires. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's children were not alone. They were not defenseless. The sleeping giant had awakened, and it was very, very angry. The human fleet appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts becoming real. One moment, space around the Vorthok territory was empty. The next moment, over 1,000 human ships materialized from the darkness, their engines glowing like angry stars. Admiral Han Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the tactical display. Red dots showed Vorthok positions throughout the sector. Blue dots showed her own ships, spreading out like a net to surround their enemies. All ships. This is Admiral Han. She spoke into her communications device. We are here for one reason. Only bring our people home. Show no mercy to anyone who stands in our way. The first Vorthok outpost was built on a small moon called Kresh 7. It was a trading post where stolen people were sorted and sold to the highest bidder. The Vorthok commander there was named Vextal, and he had been selling slaves for 20 years. Vextal was eating his morning meal when his sensors detected the approaching human ships. At first, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The primitive Earth species wasn't supposed to have any military ships at all. Sir, we're reading 50 human vessels approaching, his tactical officer reported nervously. Send 5 ships to destroy them. Make it quick. But when the Vorthok ships engaged the humans, something impossible happened. The human vessels moved like living creatures, dodging and weaving through space with perfect coordination. Their weapons were incredibly accurate, hitting targets from distances that should have been impossible. Within minutes, all 5 Vorthok ships were destroyed. The humans hadn't lost a single vessel. How? Vextal whispered, watching the battle recordings. How did they do that? The answer came when the human ships surrounded his outpost. Instead of demanding surrender, they simply began their attack. Beams of pure energy cut through the station's shields like they were made of paper. The humans used weapons that moved and adapted, learning from each shot to become more effective. We surrender. Vextal broadcast desperately. We surrender. But the humans weren't interested in surrender. They had come to rescue their people. They were going to make sure the Vorthok never forgot this day. The rescue ships landed inside the station, while the warships kept watch outside. Human soldiers in advanced armor moved through the corridors, following scanner readings that led them to the prison cells. Lieutenant Song Min-ho was one of the first colonists to be rescued. He had been taken from the New Seoul 3 weeks ago and had thought he would never see home again. When he saw the human soldiers break down his cell door, he almost cried with relief. Are you from Earth? He asked weakly. Yes, sir. The soldier replied, We're here to take you home. Song Min-ho noticed something strange. The soldiers weren't just rescuing people. They were also placing small devices throughout the station. When he asked about them, a soldier explained simply, Evidence. We're recording everything so the galaxy can see what the Vorthok do to innocent people. After all the humans were rescued from the station, the fleet moved on. They left the outpost burning behind them, but not before broadcasting the rescue operation across the galaxy. Every alien civilization could watch as Earth's primitive species demonstrated military capabilities that none of them had expected. The second Vorthok outpost fell even faster. This time, the aliens tried to fight back with everything they had. They used their biggest warships and their most advanced weapons. It didn't matter. The human fleet swept through their defenses like a hurricane through Paperhouse's commander. Vetmer watched the battle reports from his flagship deep in Vorthok space. Each defeat was more shocking than the last. The humans were using technology that shouldn't exist. Their ships could disappear and reappear instantly. Their weapons could track targets through multiple jumps through hyperspace. Their tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "How are they doing this?" he demanded from his science officer. "Sir, we think they've been preparing for war much longer than we realized," the officer replied nervously. "Their ships appear to be built specifically for combat. Every system is designed for maximum efficiency in battle." What the Vorthok didn't understand was that humans had been fighting wars for thousands of years. While other species had achieved peace before reaching space, humans had continued to develop new ways to fight each other. Every weapon they used against the Vorthok had been tested in actual combat against other humans. The third outpost tried a different approach. They sent a message to Admiral Han offering to negotiate. They would return some human prisoners in exchange for the fleet withdrawing from Vorthok space. Admiral Han's response was broadcast across the galaxy: "We don't negotiate with slavers. We destroy them." The attack on the third outpost was even more devastating than the previous ones. The humans used new weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Missiles that could think for themselves and adapt to enemy defenses. Energy beams that could bend around obstacles to hit their targets. Ships that could become invisible until the moment they fired, by the time the third outpost was destroyed. The entire galaxy was watching. News networks from hundreds of worlds showed the same footage. Over and over, human ships appearing from nowhere, destroying everything in their path, and rescuing their people with mechanical precision. The species that had been dismissed as weak, newcomers were revealing themselves to be something much more dangerous. They were apex predators who had been hiding their true nature behind polite, diplomatic words. The hunt had begun, and the Vorthok were learning what it meant to be prey. The Vorthok High Command met in their fortress on the planet Vorthok Prime. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders of their empire. Them trying to understand how their plans had gone so wrong. For generations, they had been the hunters. Now, suddenly, they were being hunted. Commander Vekmer stood at the center of the room, his forearms gesturing angrily as he spoke. "These humans are destroying everything we built. They have taken back most of their people and burned half our outposts." "How many ships do they have?" asked General Korthax, the oldest and most experienced Vorthok military leader. "Our scouts count over 1,000 vessels," Thekmar replied, "but they keep appearing from nowhere, and we think they have been hiding their true strength for years." Ow. Room fell silent. Every Vorthok in the chamber understood what this meant. They had made a terrible mistake when they attacked the human colony ship. They had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. "What do you suggest?" asked the Supreme Commander, a massive Vorthok who had ruled their empire for 30 years. The eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. "We still have 150 human prisoners. We will threaten to kill them unless Earth withdraws. Its fleet. These humans seem to care about their people. They will negotiate." It was the worst decision they could have made. The broadcast went out across the galaxy. Thismer stood in front of a camera with human prisoners chained behind him. Among them was little Choi Hannah, the 8-year-old girl who had been so excited to see the space station. She looked thin and scared, her clothes dirty from weeks of imprisonment. "People of Earth," Thekmar announced, "your fleet has caused enough damage. If you do not withdraw immediately, we will begin executing your people. 1 every hour until you leave our space." To prove he was serious, he gave an order to his guards. They dragged a 6-year-old boy named Park Ji-hoon forward, Child was crying for his parents, begging to go home. The camera kept rolling as the Vorthok guards raised their weapons. "I want to go home," were the last words Park Jae-hoon spoke. The execution was broadcast live across the galaxy. Every human on Earth watched in horror as a child was murdered just to make a point. The boy's parents, who had been waiting safely on Earth, collapsed when they saw their son die. But the Vorthok had misunderstood something fundamental about humans. They thought the execution would make Earth's leaders afraid. Instead, it made them furious. Admiral Han Ji-woo was in her command center when the broadcast ended. The bridge was completely silent. Every officer stared at the screens, their faces showing a mixture of grief and rage that aliens had never seen before. Captain Lim Dae-yoon, Han's second-in-command, spoke first. "Admiral, we're receiving new orders from Earth." Han looked at the message on her screen. It was short and simple. "No prisoners. No mercy. Burn them all. Change of plans," Han announced to her fleet. "We are no longer conducting a rescue operation. This is now a war of extermination." The human fleet's true capabilities were finally applied. Revealed ships that had been holding back now unleashed weapons that made the galaxy tremble. Kinetic bombardment systems fired metal rods at incredible speeds, turning entire Vorthok cities into molten glass. The rods were so fast that they hit their targets before the sound of their firing could be heard. Self-replicating hunter-killer drones were released into Vorthok space. These small machines could build copies of themselves using any metal they found. Within days, millions of them were swarming through the Vorthok Empire, destroying everything that moved. The most terrifying weapon was something called a gravity well generator. Human ships could create artificial gravity fields that crushed enemy vessels like tin cans. Entire Vorthok battle fleets were compressed into balls of metal and left floating in space as warnings to others. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity revealed what they truly were. Other species had achieved space travel after making peace with themselves. Humans had reached the stars while still fighting wars with each other. Every weapon they used had been tested in actual combat against other humans. The Vorthok Empire began to crumble. Their colonies surrendered without fighting. Their allies abandoned them. Their own people started to rebel, knowing that continuing to fight would only bring more destruction. "How?" General Korthax asked as he watched another Vorthok world burn. "How did we not see this coming?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A human prisoner who had been rescued from one of the destroyed outposts was interviewed by Galactic news networks. Lieutenant Song Min-ho explained it simply. "You thought we were weak because we asked for peace. You didn't understand that we were offering you a choice. You could have been our friends. Instead, you chose to be our enemies." The revelation spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans weren't a peaceful species that had been forced to fight. They were warriors who had chosen to offer peace. When that peace was rejected, they showed their true nature. The Vorthok had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before, a species that treated warfare as a science to be perfected, and that would sacrifice everything to protect their young. The hunt was no longer about rescue. It had become about survival, the Vorthok survival. The Vorthok homeworld was burning. Admiral Hanju stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the last enemy stronghold crumble under human weapons. The planet below was covered in fire and smoke, but she felt no satisfaction, only the cold certainty that justice was being served. Admiral Captain Lim Dae-yoon reported, "We're receiving surrender messages from 17 different Vorthok commanders. They're begging for mercy." Han looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed the remaining Vorthok ships scattered and broken. Most of them were trying to flee, but human hunter-killer drones were hunting them down one by one. "Denied," Han said without hesitation. "They had their chance to show mercy when they took our people. They chose to murder a child instead." Final battle was not really a battle at all. It was an execution. The Vorthok had built their capital city inside a massive underground complex, thinking the rock and metal would protect them. But human weapons could penetrate anything. Gravity. Bombs crushed their defenses. Kinetic rods punched through miles of solid rock. Energy beams melted their strongest walls. Commander Vikmar made his last broadcast from the ruins of his command center. His armor was cracked, his face bleeding from falling debris, Please, he begged. We surrender. We give up. No more fighting. But the humans were not listening anymore. They'd passed the point where words could stop them. The last Vorthok ship exploded in a brief flash of light, and then there was only silence. The Vorthok Empire was gone. In less than 2 months, humans had destroyed a civilization that had existed for over 1,000 years. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most experienced. Slavers in known space were wiped from existence. The journey home took 3 months. As the human fleet traveled back toward Earth, something amazing happened. Every day, new messages arrived from alien civilizations across the galaxy. They all said the same thing. We want to be your friends. Galactic Confederation, which had offered only sympathies when humans were taken, suddenly began sending urgent diplomatic messages. They wanted to meet with Earth's leaders immediately. They wanted to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, cultural exchanges. President Kim Soo-jin read the messages with amusement. 6 months ago, they barely acknowledged we existed, she told her advisors. Now they're desperate to make us their allies. What changed? Asked her Secretary of State. They learned what we really are, Kim replied. They thought we were sheep. Now they know we're wolves. When the human fleet finally arrived at Earth, the entire planet was celebrating. Every nation had declared a holiday. Cities around the world held parades and festivals. Children waved flags and sang songs about the brave soldiers who had brought their people home. The rescue ships arrived first, carrying the freed prisoners. Little Choi Hannah was among them, running into her parents' arms at the orbital station. She had lost weight during her captivity, but her eyes were bright with joy. I knew you would come for us, she told her father. I knew Earth wouldn't leave us behind. Admiral Han Ju-woo was the last to leave her ship. She had spent 4 months in space, hunting down every Vorthok facility and rescuing every human prisoner. Now, standing on Earth again, she felt the weight of what they had accomplished. President Kim met her at the spaceport. The galaxy has reclassified us, she told the admiral. We're no longer listed as a minor species. They've created a new category just for us. Apex predator species. Good, Han replied, watching the rescued colonists reunite with their families. Let them remember what happens when they touch our people. The changes came quickly. Within weeks, Earth received more trade offers than they could process. Alien species that had never acknowledged humanity's existence were suddenly eager to do business. Advanced technologies were offered. As gifts, defensive alliances were proposed. The most powerful empire in the galaxy, Centauri Federation, sent their highest diplomat to Earth. He arrived with a fleet of the most beautiful ships ever seen, but he came in peace. We wish to apologize, the diplomat said during his meeting with President Kim. We should have helped when your people were taken. We should have stopped the Vorthok long ago. Why didn't you? Kim asked. The diplomat looked uncomfortable. We thought they were only taking weak species. We didn't realize that some species choose to appear weak while actually being strong. The conversation was broadcast across the galaxy. Every alien civilization heard the same message. Humans had revealed their true nature. The balance of power had shifted forever. But the most important change happened in the dark corners of space. In the quiet moments when alien parents tucked their children into bed, a new story began to spread, whispered from world to world like an ancient legend. Never harm the humans young, parents told their children. They look peaceful, but they are the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy. If you hurt one of their people, they will set the very skies on fire to get revenge. The story grew with each telling. Some versions said humans could make stars explode. Others claimed they could travel through time to hunt their enemies. All of them agreed on one thing: humanity was not to be underestimated. Earth had announced its presence to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never forget. Sleeping giant had awakened, and it was here to stay.